Okay, by the way, tomorrow is back to Tachnun, back to everything. Okay, before Hanukkah, Before Hanukkah, we're learning about the din of Psukkah de Zimra. We're discussing that in the days of the Anshe Knesset Agdola, a letter fell down from heaven with the text of Baruch Sha'amar in it, and therefore it's a very holy prayer, and therefore the Chachamim instituted it every day in Davening, and therefore you're supposed to stand when you say Baruch Sha'amar. Well, you learned, you hold the two front tzitzis in your hand, and when you say Melech Mahulo Batishbachis, you kiss the tzitzis. Then after Baruch Sha'amar, you say Mizmor L'Seida. Now Mizmor L'Seida, we say during the week, every weekday, not Shabbos and Yom Tif, not during Pesach, not Erev Yom Kippur, not Erev Pesach. Why don't we say it? So the Chazal say, Mizmor L'Seida, the custom is also you're supposed to stand when you say it, and it says you're supposed to say it with Simcha. First of all, in it says, Ivdos Hashem b'Simcha. What's the inyan of the Mizmor L'Seida is instead of bringing a carbon teida. In other words, in the time of the Bais Din, now we bench goimel. Okay, for various different things. You were very sick, you crossed the desert, you crossed the ocean, you were in jail. I mean, things like that we bench goimel for. In the time of the Bais Din, they actually had to bring a carbon teida, a Thanksgiving offering. That had it with the lachmei teida. There were breads that were brought together with the carbon teida. It was a whole thing. So now every morning we want to thank Hashem, give thanksgiving to Hashem that we're alive when we woke up, and everything else. Similar, that in the Hasidic community, before Friday night mincha, so everybody says Patach Aliyah. I mean, not the Sfardim say Patach Aliyah. In the Chassidish Sha'ilam, they also say Heidu Kapitel Kuv Zayin and Tilim. And that was instituted by the Baal Shem Tov. Why do we say Kuv Zayin before Friday night davening, before Mincha? Because in that parak of Tilim, Kuv Zayin is mentioned 4 times the 4 people that have to bench Geimel. Okay? The 4 people that have to bench Geimel are mentioned in that parak of Tilim. Whatever, those things are mentioned of all the 4 people that bench Geimel. So the Baal Shem Tov said, we survived the week, we're about to go to Shabbos, you have to say, so to speak, bench Geimel. Thanksgiving to Hashem, so we say that kapitel Kuv Zayin, that speaks about all the 4 people. Yodel Hashem Chastiv in the place of Bnei Adam is said 4 times in that parak. Similarly, every day after Baruch Shama, we say Mizmor L'Seida. So because Mizmor L'Seida is such an important tefillah, again, you're supposed to say it standing, you're supposed to say it with Simcha, because basically you're thanking Hashem for all the kindness and goodness that He did. Okay, next. Okay, now, so why don't we say it Shabbos and Yom Tif? Why don't we say Mizmor L'Seida Shabbos and Yom Tif? So the simple halachic reason for that is because an optional korban, a private individual's korban, was not allowed to be brought on Shabbos. Only the communal sacrifices were allowed to be brought on Shabbos. But if somebody even had a sin offering, let's say, that they had to bring, or whatever, they were not allowed to bring it on Shabbos, because you didn't have to bring it on Shabbos, so they'll desecrate Shabbos, bring it after Shabbos. The communal korbanos, the daily korbanos, and the korban musaf that they had to bring, the Torah says, so they desecrated Shabbos. Private korbanos that individuals bring, you don't desecrate Shabbos. So therefore, the korban teida was not allowed to be brought on Shabbos or Yom Tif, because you're desecrating Shabbos and Yom Tif, so you're not allowed to. Pesach, we don't say it, because part of the korban was the lachmei teida, the chometz stick of breads that they brought together with the korban teida. So because you can't have chometz on Pesach, so they couldn't bring the korban teida on Pesach. Erev Yom Kippur, we don't say it, because the din was that any korban, when you brought it, you had to be able to eat it in the allotted time that the Torah allows you to eat it. Now the Korban Torah was eaten for a day and a night. So if you brought the Korban Torah Erev Yom Kippur, technically the Torah says you can eat it that day and the following night. The problem is you can't eat it the following night because it's Yom Kippur. Right? So therefore, you can't say, Mizmah say the Erev Yom Kippur, because again, they didn't bring the Korban Torah on Erev Yom Kippur because you didn't have enough time to eat it. The question is, why do we say it on Tisha B'Av? So the answer is, in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, they brought the Korban Torah on Tisha B'Av. So now we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. Anyway, you can't bring a Korban Torah. So therefore, Mizmah say we just don't say those days, but the other days we say it. Huh? No. Any Yom Tov, Pesach, Shavuos, any Yom Tov or Shabbos that you're not allowed to desecrate, you're not allowed to bring a Korban Torah. Because it was an individual private korban. The private korbanos were not allowed to be brought on Shabbos. Okay, now, if somebody comes late to shul, no, I change it. When somebody comes late to shul, not if. When you come late to shul, so in Shulchan Aruch it says that the most important thing is to daven Shemoneh Esrei with the Minyan. So a lot of very big Hasidim who come always late to shul, so in the halacha it says you're supposed to skip different parts of davening to be able to get to Shemoneh Esrei with the Minyan. Certain parts of Pesukei D'Zimra you could skip, whatever. In the Hasidic community we don't skip because you're supposed to daven in order. Okay? But the very big Chassidim that come late, and then they start learning and do all that garbage. No, I know. I'm saying hypothetically. And then they start coming late, and therefore they don't. And then, so they say, no, you can't skip Shemoneh Esrei because Allah, you have to daven straight. But the same Shulchan Aruch says you have to come on time. Even the Alter Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch, you have to not come late to shul. You have to come on time to shul. So therefore, that's all I had to say. Next. So we're not going to get into what to skip because again, in our circles we don't skip, but in our circles you have to come on time to shul. On time to shul, by the way, means not JFK, just for Kiddush. The JFK Jews. JFK stands for just for Kiddush, and Shabbos many people are JFK Jews. Or now we can have JFC. Just for coffee. Yeah. Coffee, the general word for all the things the machine makes, JFC. No, I'm serious. So, yeah, you have to coming to davening with a minyan, by the way, means you start Hoida with the minyan. That's what davening with a minyan means. In fact, it's brought down, I mentioned this not long ago in this class. Chassidim asked the Alter Rebbe, it's brought down beginning of Sefer Minhagim, that the Chassidim asked the Alter Rebbe, they wanted to daven long, but they didn't want to lose out davening with the minyan, because davening with the minyan is a very, very important thing. Yeah? The Gemara tells a story that the Rebbe Lazar came into shul once, Rebbe Eliezer came to shul once, and he had his Goyish slave with him, and the din is, a non-Jewish slave, when you buy them, you give him a bris, and he goes to mikveh, and he's obligated in all the mitzvahs women are obligated in, meaning all the negative mitzvahs, any positive mitzvah, that's why it always says noshim v'avodim, because women and slaves, they had the same halachic obligation. So if you bought a Goyish slave, a non-Jewish slave, the halacha is, the Gemara says, and the Rambam brings it down, you give him a bris, and he goes to mikveh, and he's obligated, he's not a full-fledged Jew yet. If the master frees the slave, then he becomes a full-fledged Jew. Mamish like a man, mamish a full-fledged Jew. So the Gemara tells a story, Rabbi Eliezer once came into shul with his slave, and there were 9 men, and there was no minyan. He freed his slave to be able to make a minyan. And in fact, the Mefarshim ask, there's a rule in halacha, you don't say chatei b'shul sheyiska chavercha. You don't say you should sin in order for somebody else to benefit. So here, as Taisus explains in Gemara Shabbos, the Gemara in Gittin says that L'olam behem taveidu, by an Eved Kanani, it says L'olam behem taveidu, you have to keep them slaves forever. So the Gemara says in Gittin, Kol Meshacher et Avdei Over Be'eser. The Gemara says in the fourth parak of Gittin, whoever frees his goyish slave is transgressing a positive mitzvah. The Torah says they should work for you la'olam forever, and here you're freeing him. So Taisa's answer is, how was Rabbi Eliezer allowed to free the slave? He transgressed positive mitzvah in the Torah. So Taisa's answer, davening with a minyan, is so important. For that, you're able to free your slave. Other Rishonim, by the way, answers Tam. It's interesting. Other Rishonim don't answer like Taisa. The answer, the Gemara doesn't mean the Ran says in Gittin that it's not mamish a positive mitzvah. It's the Gemara wants to show it's important, but it's not actually a positive mitzvah. So therefore, he's able to do it. Anyway, why am I saying all this? Because what? No, in that thing about not freeing the slave, it's not that's what the Ran says in Gittin, the fourth paragraph. It's not mamish a mitzvah. So therefore he was allowed to do it. So machlekes rishonim, if you could say chatei under certain circumstances. But that, this is from my yeshiva years. I didn't see that for years. But, so you have that, it's important to daven with a minyan, daven with a minyan. Oh, so they asked the Alter Rebbe, I got sidetracked. How can I daven with the minyan and daven long? I want to accomplish both things. So the Alter Rebbe told them, if you start hoidu with the minyan, even though then you go slow, so it's still called tefillah b'tzibur. It's still called davening with the minyan. For those Jews that daven long. Anyway, but otherwise it's very important to daven with the minyan, which means to daven Shemoneh Esrei with the minyan, and it's very, very important thing. The Rebbe once told Rebbe Nissen Demenov in Yechidus, he doesn't understand why Bachrim are not davening with a minyan. He doesn't understand why they're not davening with a minyan. It's important that it's Shchanach. It's a din Shchanach. You have to daven with a minyan. So Mele Chosid who davens 3-4 hours Shachris. Okay. So they have a different level of a minyan. They daven with the 10 powers of the soul. But anyway, bottom line is it's important to daven with a minyan. And so where's the question coming from? Which field? Not coming late or coming early?
Coming early.
Coming early, and you want to daven longer, so you can start before the minyan, but in Shchanach it says you're not allowed to daven Shemoneh Esrei before the minyan. If you're in shul,
not Shemoneh Esrei, but
I'm saying, but in Shchanach there's a din, you're not allowed to start Shemoneh Esrei before the minyan starts. But if you're starting earlier because you want to daven slower and then wait that Shemoneh Esrei for the minyan, that's proper. That's good. That's still called tefillah b'tzibur. Tefillah b'tzibur is davening Shemoneh Esrei with a minyan. Okay, what else is there here? Okay, now the question is interesting. Machlekes and poskim. If I daven when the chazan repeats the Shemoneh Esrei, is that also called tefillah b'tzibur? In other words, let's say I'm a little late, but I'm davening Shemoneh Esrei when the chazan is repeating the Shemoneh Esrei. Is that called tefillah b'tzibur or not? So again, the Prima Godim says it's not, the B'Chacha says it is. There's some sefer about that also, if that's called tefillah b'tzibur or not. But the best thing, come on time, early, put on tefillin, have your coffee, put on tefillin, come with them, daven with the minyan.
So, Rabbi, is it better to skip what precedes Shemoneh Esrei?
According to Kabbalah and Chassidus, you don't skip davening, because davening is in order. There's an orderly thing that each thing is said in each part of davening.
Will not skip, even if you're late.
Correct. That's the way not according again in Shchanach it says you have to skip parts of davening to daven Shemoneh Esrei with a minyan. But according to Kabbalah it says you should not skip because then you're mixing up the worlds, Atzilus with Bria, you're just mixing everything.
Something I thought that everybody accepts that it's better not to pray what precedes the Shemoneh Esrei, but stop. If you know that you're not going to make it finish with everybody else,
no.
you might as well not. not to recite everything that precedes Shemona Esrei, so that you wait and you start the Shemona Esrei.
So I'm saying in halacha it says certain parts of davening you can skip, and certain parts of davening you can't skip. Baruch Shamar Ashri Yishtabach you must say. From Baruch Hu until Shemona Esrei you must say. The only thing you can leave out is halachos, and even then it's in order. If you, let's say you're able to say Baruch Shamar Ashri Yishtabach, and halacha it says that's fine. What happens if you have more time? Then you say Haluk Kel B'Kotshei. You know, right the last. If you have more time, you say Halu Hashem and Hashemayim Halu B'Amreimim. It's the order of importance. Then, if you have more time, you say from Vayivarach David and all that. But again, that's only when it happens once in every 5 years. When it happens 7 times, 8 times a week, it's a problem. Yeah, 8 times a week is a problem. What can I tell you?
8 times
Huh?
8 times a week.
Yeah, because Mincha Maev. Machin is a Meiser Mamach Beba Main Kim Shivlag out there, Hanan Kashemen, Lots of the Bach Zak Sophie, Hebel Hamter Mitzvah Shinama.